So, Jorg, hello. How are you doing?
Excellent. How are you?
Doing fantastic. For those who don't know, let them know what you do at MSFS.
My name is Jorg Neumann. I am the head of Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Hello, I'm David Dedeine, creative director at Asobo Studio.
All right, and you worked on the career in MSFS 2024.
Yes, it was part of my job, yes.
All right, perfect.
Okay, so my name is Sebastian Wloch. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Asobo Studio. I also do a lot of engineering, research on flight model, aerodynamics, all sorts of technologies.
All right. Tell us about what made you guys pick the Grand Canyon as a location for this event.
Yeah, so it was two things. It started with this actually. So there was an invention basically about 2.5 years ago when I had this idea. Basically, there's photogrammetry in this world, right? And we use that in cities. And I talked to the company that makes the photogrammetry cameras. And I said, do you ever do anything with countryside? And they're like, yeah, but the camera is not that good, and it's just not going to work. And I said, can I try it? Yeah. Just give me some of the data. So they sent me to the Grand Canyon, and it looked just like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it looks great. And they're like, well, it's not good enough for buildings. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I want it. So we put it in the sim. It looked friggin' amazing. And then I talked about doing a global preview event, and I said, and people asked me, where do you want to go? I'm like, Grand Canyon. For sure.
Awesome.
And on top of that, it's a really kind of a cool airspace, right? When you go down into the canyon, it's obviously cool, but but it was really just to show, we're on this pursuit of the digital twin. We're very close here with the digital twin.
Yeah, I mean, I got to do the helicopter around, and then I took Draco around the rim of the canyon, and gosh, that canyon looks amazing.
It does, right?
Yeah. So big focus in the presentation we had was about community stuff. What's your favorite part about the community?
Their passion. It's the combination of there's sort of an intrinsic optimism in this group of the community.
Yeah.
Like they love everything related to aviation. But what's fascinating to me is how broad it is. They're all very well informed, and then they go into all kinds of different corners. Like some people want to just do weather, some people want to do just aircraft, and I think when you listen at the aggregate total, you couldn't ask for a more informed group of people to collaborate with.
That's awesome.
So for me, at some point, I just said, you know what? Forget about a game team. We're all in this together. And that's when I coined this phrase. We're making this for the community, and we're making it with the community. And that's a huge change compared to how previous flight sims were made.
For sure. After MS 2020 was released, was there kind of a moment when it was like an aha moment when you realized the community is this special? Was there a specific moment that you had?
A specific moment, I think there was this moment when I came out of it was actually before we released.
Okay.
Yeah, we had shown the first trailer ever of Flight Sim 20 at E3, I think, or maybe it was a briefing. And I walked out. Oh, was E3? I walked out in the heat of California. Somebody calls me on my cell phone. I was like, I have no idea what his number is, but I picked up, which I typically wouldn't, and it was this gentleman from Hobart, Australia. And I will always remember this. And he's like, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah from Hobart. I saw your trailer, looks awesome. However, the tree color is wrong. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I said, my reaction was, okay, cool, good feedback. Write me an email. Here's my email address. So he wrote me an email with all kinds of pictures. And then we kept talking over the years. And I realized that there is no way that we can do justice to the entire world out of Seattle or out of Bordeaux. We had to go engage with people that live in places and give us feedback, and that has been ongoing ever since. There was sort of the first rock that started to roll down the hill, and now it's an avalanche. I mean, basically we get feedback all the time. More than half of my emails is from people that want to help make this perfect.
And I'm sure the community doesn't hesitate to give you their feedback.
Oh no, they're very open. No, I mean I honestly love that because it always comes from passion and love for aviation.
That's very nice. All right. How do you get informed? How do you interact with the community to find out exactly what they want to be updated for, like 2024?
We have forums, so I read the forums every day. We have a community team that, there's a ton of forums, right? And so I read as much as I can. We have a community team that scans the forums, so we're looking for themes. We have something that's another listening system. We do something called Dev Q&As. Every 4 to 6 weeks, we collect questions. We do live questions, and we get people's feedback. And at some point, you really grok what they're interested in, what's missing, where we need to improve, and then we dedicate ourselves to making it better. With Flight Sim 2024, it was very obvious in analysis of what they said, when you really look into it a little bit more, that everybody was asking for more to do.
Yeah.
Everybody was asking for more aircraft as well, but you know, that was pretty obvious. But the stuff to do was interesting, because it had been done before. Flight Sim Flight Sim 10 had missions, but it was handcrafted, very few, and then you were done in like 4 days, and then there was nothing else to go for. And so we knew that we couldn't do that again. So that informed a lot of what we did, actually. That took us down this path of we really need to embrace the planet as a platform. We need to give the tools for the community to make stuff in that platform, and we're just kicking off stuff like this career that we're doing right now. It's just the beginning. It will be opened up. People can make their own careers, et cetera, and that is what's really going to take this over the top.
That's fantastic to hear. Was one of the future ones like, can we make our own career? Sort of thing. Can't wait for that. Yeah. I can't wait to see, because I'm sure the community will have some amazing ideas.
I get this all the time. Like the Coast Guard called me, right? So
really?
I get this all the time. Like aircraft manufacturers call us because they don't have enough recruits. They have a real hard time finding enough people getting into aviation. But even people like the Coast Guard say, or search and rescue organizations, we don't have enough people coming through. How can we help you? They see us as sort of this outreach tool. And then I say, well, help us make this right. And they helped us, they gave us feedback. Ultimately, what I think is going to happen is we're going to give the tools to them. And I believe they will make their own curriculum. And because it takes so much specific insight. It can't be a game designer coming up like, what's search and rescue really like? We have people that do search and rescue, which is awesome. But I think it empower people to do the right thing. And I think that will take us to places unexpected, deeper than anything we could accomplish on our own.
I can't wait to see where it goes. Has MSFS then been used by any real-world training, like flight schools yet?
It's being used. It's not exactly, so we have
it's not certified.
No, the manufacturers, they have their own ideas of how to train our pilots on their devices. So we actually, when we license, say, from the big airliners, they don't allow us to be a professional tool.
For sure.
But that doesn't mean people don't do it. It's like I get plenty of pictures of people saying, oh yeah, it's in my flight school. And like even in the manufacturers, they're like, oh yeah, we're using it for this and that. I'm like, you are?
And I know a couple of pilots that even use it just as refreshers.
That's what everybody says. We just need stick time. Even it's virtual stick. Just hitting landings is important.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone was kind of a little surprised when 2024 was first announced. Can we expect something similar in terms of the next version afterwards, say 2028?
So 24 was a reaction to the reality of creators being much more creative than we thought they would be. I mean, just the sheer volume was just totally unexpected. We are now at 5,000 add-ons.
Yeah.
It'll be 10,000 add-ons next year. I mean, it's crazy.
It's insane.
Like you can't, we're like, oh my God, the architecture won't hold. So we had to make an architectural change. I would say we're making this for the community. If the community reacts and says, Flight Sim 2024 is awesome, do it again. Okay, well, we're making it for them. It really is that way. Like it's we sit here and make the super uber plan and somehow shovel that down people's throats. That's not how we do it. So I'm going to try to keep my ears open. I will read everything, listen to people, and if they say this was awesome, let's do it again, and here's our ideas, then we're here to serve.
Awesome. It was I was in the presentation. I was watching it. I was like, what more could they add?
Oh, I have all kinds of ideas.
Oh yeah. But it was like one of those like I had my mouth open a number of times just watching some of this stuff, and it was like, this is what I wish 2020 was. Yeah. And here it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to get it at home and fly.
Thank you. We try.
Yeah.
But I would say, even just today, people say, so I really do think you should do trains. So I'm like, okay, cool.
Trains?
So and it's actually, I don't know if you ever look at our feedback snapshot, it's in there. I think it's in the top 25.
Yeah.
I miss trains is what it's called. So I actually click on that ever so often to see what people say. We will. It really goes like this. I know shared cockpit is a thing, so we kind of at some point we have to tackle it. It's complicated. It's multiplayer. We need to do it right on the platform level. The fact, I expose myself as the guy who really cares about animals probably the most on the team. So I'm like, why do we not have any birds? Like, how is this even possible?
That Planet Zoo thing was amazing.
I know. Yeah, Johnny and I go way back from Frontier.
So, rolling back to what you said, is shared cockpit something we can expect in 2024 eventually? Is that on the roadmap?
No, it's been prototyped. So we've done some prototypes. It's not ready.
Yeah.
That's otherwise. We have lots of those types of things where we're like, oh, this would be cool, and it's not ready.
Gotcha.
So it comes down to, like, what do people really want? You know, when you look at flight sim, it obviously had a certain rhythm, right? We're not the first flight sim. We're like the 11th or 12th now. I think there's a group of people where it's their hobby, and obviously those matter greatly to us. And I'm just going to be very curious. I mean, I heard the same thing. People were like, 2024, what? Why?
Yeah.
It's like, guys, seriously, we're trying to do what you want.
Yeah.
Like, we're listening, we're doing the right thing. But people need to feel it, they need to play it, they need to give us feedback, and they need to feel that we're as committed. And I think, hopefully, we're proving this. We are super committed to listening and to making it better.
I can, even just from seeing an event like this, it shows how committed it is. Now, the question I had is that now everything's moving to the cloud. I don't know if this is a question for Seb, maybe, but is offline mode even possible still? Because I'm seeing aircraft are on the cloud, the kind of, that sort of things are on the cloud.
A cache is possible.
A cache, okay.
Yeah, it's different from, you have to just switch how you think about it. Can you have stuff local? Sure, but you can't. It's just a different architecture.
And I'm sure people will be a little hesitant after hearing that, just because we've all had a little issues with the servers from time to time, with it dropping out or our internet dropping out. Say, if our internet drops out, would the sim just kind of stop, or would it keep going?
So the cache will keep going. So if you cache it, it caches the next n number of 100 kilometers, and so it's not like it will stop. But I think that's just the world in which we live. If we want to have this level of detail, you know, you have, I don't know, what 2 petabytes we had, now we probably have 3 petabytes.
Oh my gosh.
There's nothing.
That's insane.
You can't put that anywhere.
Yeah.
You need to build yourself a building with servers just to store that stuff. So it's like, it's not, you can't cache the entire planet. It's not possible.
That's true.
And I agree with you. I know people, I actually kind of expect that. There are people that live in southern Germany that I'm talking to often, and they have a great computer, but they can't really do much about the internet. They can get Skylink and stuff, but that's a choice. That's a life choice they have to make. That's why, honestly, this is one of the reasons why I feel great. I said on the beginning that Flight Sim 2020 is going to be supported for a long time, and I always meant that. And one of the reasons why I think that one will have an offline mode, and we will keep supporting it. So even if you live in one of those places, because that's just life, it's not under people's control, that doesn't have great internet, there's a fallback.
I get permission to ask the community for some questions.
Great. Oh,
we got some
I love that.
hilarious.
Oh my.
We got some more serious
Brace
ones.
for impact.
Some more serious ones. But there's some funny ones that I had. We have seen Xbox titles move over to PlayStation. Is MSFS a possibility? Some people were wondering.
I would say a possibility is always a possibility. Like I think of it less about platforms, but people. Like I would say, we made great inroads, for example, in Japan. Like I don't know if you followed that, but our first world update was in Japan. And what's fascinating about that is how much that triggered a Japanese community to form.
Really? Wow.
And it's sizable. And because they felt seen, and that Flight Sim is now a thing. And I think we have more work to do to go. I mean, I get a lot of email about Brazil. Oh my God. Like, I would say
I think Brazil's a big
10, 15
market,
a week about, hey, what's going on with Brazil update, It's a big market, but also people that are passionate about aviation. Embraer is a huge deal in Brazil. And so I think about it more as what people have we not reached. I'm genuine when I say the dream of flight is a human dream. It has nothing to do with geography or anything, certainly not with hardware. Who cares about that? So but people would like to fly. And some people just didn't have access, sometimes because there was no computers available, or there's no Xbox or whatever the heck. But I think that's my predominant view. And right now, I send planes to South America. There's planes in Africa. There's 1 billion people in Africa. I care about reaching them with aviation.
That's awesome.
So PlayStation, I'm sure we'll talk about this or the other, but it's much more important to me. It's like, okay, there's Uganda. Do we have anybody in Kenya? What are we doing?
All right.
And I want to go, like just to go off on that a little bit, when we go into say a place like Africa, I'm determined to work with universities and governments and STEM programs to really seed this. Because I think aviation is an important thing across the world. And I think there's just, it's just not started there. It started sort of in Central Europe and North America, and a little bit in Australia. But the world is a huge place, and I want to really embrace that.
Another big question was, a lot of people asked was, can we open the doors on default planes?
Yes.
All right. Love to hear it.
Simple answer. We haven't really talked about. There's some features we haven't talked about at all, like windshield wipers. We didn't talk about them at all.
Oh, is that the actually they do their thing?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Literally, we forgot about this in the presentation. It's funny.
That was something that someone asked PMDG about the 777. Like, do the wipers work? And he was like, we could make our own thing, but then Microsoft might make their own thing, and then they'll just be. Yeah. And he was like, well, there it is.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You know, the funny thing is, we did this long presentation, and the amount of stuff we had to cut.
Oh, I bet.
Because it's so big. The product is so big.
I bet.
But windshields is on the wish list. So
there we go.
So therefore we did it.
All right. People wanted new camera views. They wanted tower. They want flyby. They want that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you know, I don't know if how much you follow Flight Sim, but like Fabio Merlo from Flight Control Replay.
I think so. Yes.
So Flight Control Replay is a big deal, right?
Yes.
So it was a freeware thing. Then he made it a payware thing, and then at some point I looked at this. I think it was community feedback item number 3 in the wish list was the replay camera, and we have a replay camera on PC. It's okay, and then on Xbox we have nothing. And then there was this real movement around this camera from Fabio, and I called him and I said, hey, you have something that people want. You want to work with us? And he said, yes, absolutely. And I invited him to Vegas, and he came to our last event, and he's now working with us. And the things you just mentioned are things that he wants to do next.
Awesome. That's awesome. What's your preference? Today was the Apple event. Are you an iPhone or Android? It's an iPhone. All right. This one made me chuckle. If a tree falls in the forest on 2024, does it fall in 2020?
They can't fall in 2020. The trees are different. So in 2020 the trees are 2D. In 2024 trees are 3D. Unfortunately, different platform.
And then someone asked if they could get it for free.
The game?
Yeah.
The sim?
Yeah. For sure. All right. But thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. All right. Thank you so much.
Have a great session.
All right. Perfect. So just walk us through the career mode a little bit. Just kind of what people can expect a little bit.
So what is the career mode? The career mode is basically the path that will gonna make you a better pilot at the end. I need to step back a little bit. It's based on what we have observed. We designed this career based on the main feedback we had from the community, because we did lots of different surveys in order to understand better what was expected, what was good, what needs to be improved. And the number one thing, and it's all across the board, from hardcore simmers to gamers to even what we call like tourists, digital tourists, who basically just enjoy not that much the plane, but just the planet. All of them, in every single, for all of them, the number one thing was we would like more goals, to keep it simple.
Yeah.
So it was the root of the design, and so as a result, the career will take you by the end to become a better pilot, to understand what you're doing in a plane via certification and specialization. And each time you got a certification, you will going to be able to pilot different types of planes, which allows you to then accomplish different types of plane missions. And step by step, you will soon realize that you become better at almost everything about plane, even without realizing it, which is I think the most interesting aspect, especially for the beginners, because hardcore will probably be able to go to the exam directly, but what comes with the exam is also the training. So we give for each exam, there is a set of training that will allows you to understand what you're doing and give you the best possible context in order to successfully pass the exam, which is important, by the way. I didn't mention that during the presentation. It's like exams are actually, you need to pay to pass the exam.
Oh, you have to pay from the credit that you
Exactly. So it's a bet, Yeah. You go for it or not. And by the way, the mentor actually told you, maybe you should train a bit.
Yeah, interesting.
So
cool.
As a result, step by step, you will be able to do more and more things in the world, in terms of aviation, but also in terms of activity. And at some point, you will gonna have earned enough money to even buy your own plane, which basically means that you will generate more money, which is great, but it also comes with more risk, because if you crash your plane, you lose it. So there is an insurance system also, and again, it's a bet. Maybe for some type of jobs you can take not too expensive insurance, but maybe for example, crop dusting, which is quite tricky. You would probably go for the
more expensive
full
insurance.
set. So all of that to say that ultimately you will be able to run your own business and then access to other type of aspect of the simulation, which is the wear and tear typically, because a plane now, because it's your plane. Before you were an employee, you were not looking at the plane itself and how you give it back to your boss, but now it's your plane. And if you do several missions with your plane and you, for example, land a little bit too heavily on the tarmac, or you stress the structure too much because you overspeed, or you put your flap on while you are being too fast. All of those little things are actually taken into account. I mean, even the fact, for example, because most of us actually don't look at this, at least in the sim. Even the fact that you do the cruise at RPM, which is too high, you will actually damage your engine.
Wow.
Most of the time, you take off, you keep it at the maximum, and that's it. Actually, no. In real life, if you do this, you will basically damage your. You will. Damage your engine at some point. To not enter too much into detail. All of this is taken into account, so you will gonna have to maintain your plane, etc., etc. So the Carrier is the best path to smoothly understand every single aspect of the sim without even realizing it, I think. So,
It sounds like then there's a whole new added wear and tear. The wear and tear on the airframe as you fly it. That's what I was looking for.
In order to make it work, you need your plane to be persistent. Otherwise, it's a long run, so you cannot. And it's only possible in the Carrier. But the issue is that you cannot force people to directly engage with such complex subject. And that's the reason why it comes only when you actually buy your own plane.
So when, say, someone lands too hard and they do the structural damage, will it actually affect how the plane affect?
It's both. It's basically so. It basically records every single. In the case of the gear, for example, it will record how fast your gear have been compressed, etc. And there is a sort of normal wear and tear, which is just even if you do it perfectly, at some point one day you will gonna have to change your suspension or etc. But even if they are new, if you land too hardly on the tarmac, you can damage it even if it's new,
That's amazing.
So both aspects are actually work together, basically,
That's amazing. I had seen some questions in the community about this, and they wanted to kind of know, will we be able to use our third-party add-ons in the career mode at some point?
Alors means so.
So
it's a French word. So basically, if you talk about the plane, sure, as soon as they will basically features all the requirements to be in the Carrier, but it's clearly the goal. We have designed everything to make this possible, because right now we have at least in the launch roster at least one plane, obviously for each activity. Otherwise, it would have been ridiculous. But the idea behind that is, as soon as people and third party will actually populate the marketplace and make their plane in order to support, for example, the passenger place, the seat belts, this sort of things, or if there is a hook to be put, in order to catch the bannier. they need to do this, otherwise it's not compatible, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's not that complicated ultimately to make a given plane compatible. And then pretty fast you will be going to be able to use a non-launch roster plane in the carrier. And by the way, it's super cool because typically if you think about the ferry flight type of activity, which is the scenario of this is basically someone had to land somewhere, was forced to land somewhere, and you're the guy who brings back the plane to his owner, you know?
Yeah.
So what is funny about this is like you suddenly have in front of you a plane that is not yours, and maybe you can you're not used to it, you know. And the more plane we were gonna have the more plane you were gonna have, the more opportunities to discover a new plane in this context, which is cool.
That's cool, yeah. Another thing people I saw wanted to know was if they were in free flight, could they then land somewhere without having to go back into the menu, start a mission in that career mode, or is it kind of separated from the free flights?
We keep it separated because it was, I mean, this type of discussion have been permanently in the team with Jorg. We talked about it so many times, at least like since even before the launch of Kitiok. Flight Sim 2020. We thought it was good, at least as a first step, to keep those two modes separated because we don't want people to feel that they are forced to participate to the carrier or to basically change the free flight, which is therefore reason it's your sandbox. You want to do everything you want in this thing without being disturbed by anything else. So we keep this as it is and improve. It benefit from every single feature we have added elsewhere. But so no, you will not going to be able in free flight to trigger a carrier mission.
Okay.
You will be going to be able to use the same planes extra, but you will not going to be able to complete an objective in free flight.
Got it. Was the same applied to also to the photo modes? Can you trigger a photo mode in free flight?
This is true.
Okay.
So the photo mode is transversal. Yeah, because typically so you don't see it, but there is a deer over there in the wall. You know, this type of animals you would find in the you would find in the game. They are not on a given spot. They are in the areas where they are expected to be found, but you cannot say, oh, I found this deer there, you can go there and you find it too. No, they are moving and they are basically respawning every time you launch the game, depending of season, by the way. So typically it's something that you need to be lucky sometime to find an animal. So it would have been really sad if in free flight or even in carrier, you would not have been able to take a picture and say, whoa, I found finally a giraffe, for example, or a deer. If you do the picture, it will basically inform it will validate your photographer mode objective. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's transversal.
That's awesome. When do you have a career mission that is your favorite to do? Do you have a favorite style?
I hate this question. It's like, you know, it's the kid question. Which kid you prefer? You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say that personally, I'm more on the. I mean, I like the ride of flying. I like I'm really into the finesse of the flight, and one of the type of activity that actually is a very good mix between all the new features we have added to the sim is the crop dusting. It's actually pretty hard, but you will feel the weight of your plane evolve during the mission. You will barely be able to take off at the beginning because it's quite heavy. And the more you move forward into your spray, you will realize that your plane becomes more and more, less and less heavy, more and more light, which allows you to do better turns. And you will realize how important, you will basically realize how important is the load in the plane, because the type of turn you can do is not all the same depending of the mass, and it's a very good way to actually feel it in a single, like in 15 minutes, you really feel this. And still, taking this in account, you need to fly very low. So the ground detail and how we actually improve the field rendering, for example, a corn field, you can really see the corn, you know.
That's fun.
So you fly really low.
Yeah.
And it's, so you really need to be skilled. And I would say on top of this, I love the fact that when you finish this, I mean, when you start and when you finish, you need to come back to an airfield in the middle of nowhere. Basically, it's a farm airfield, and it's super cool because it's it's quite exotic in a way. You know what I mean? So it's one of them. But you know, it's as everyone. It depends of the day. Sometimes I'm happy to do, for example, firefighting is another one. And if you want to go like hardcore scene, sure. I would say I'm not too much into the airliner, but I love the private jet.
Yes,
kind of thing. It's like VIP private jet thing because it's fast and you still have the flight planning and the avionics things, which is important in this case, and extra. So it's cool.
That's awesome. All right, and I'm asking everyone this because today was the Apple event. Are you iPhone or Android?
I'm iPhone.
You're iPhone, all right.
But honestly, I don't care. I'm not I'm not into this sort of war. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Whichever one gets it done.
Sorry?
Whichever phone gets the job done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
All right. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. All right.
The last one was great. I mean, I was surprised.
I like that. All right. Perfect. So the aerodynamics were a big thing that everyone wanted to talk about. Give us the general rundown. What's the biggest sort of improvements people will see once they get into the sim?
So we have basically 4 layers of aerodynamics now. Everyone is specialized on a different system. So the first layer is the surface system, which works really to capture the fine detail of the aerodynamics of the aircraft. So this we expanded, so the number of surfaces allowed is a lot higher. So in 2020, most aircrafts at 1,000, maybe 2,000. You can go now, I mean, maybe 5,000, 10,000. So the goal is not a number race, but it's to have a reasonable amount of surfaces on every real surface of the aircraft. And for example, airliners, they have engines.
Yeah.
So if the engine is not running, well, it's just a giant piece of stuff in the middle of the airflow, and so it's going to drag. And so in 2020, you just had one wing, one fuselage. You couldn't do the engine. Now you have the engine, which has its own surfaces. Some, like the F-18, has 2 vertical tiles. You can now have 2 vertical tiles. We added a system where surfaces can be controlled. You can, so for example, the elevator, you can have 2 controllable surfaces which can be impacted by elevator, but also ailerons. So that's now something. So we had that in 2020, but it was hard-coded for that plane. Now you can just generically create surfaces which are controlled, which allows, for example, for airliners to have ailerons, spoilerons, flapperons, whatever. All these little things that you see which depend on speed or all sorts of factors, they can all now be simulated. So that's one big improvement on the surface aerodynamics. We optimize the CFD a lot because we use all the available cores. So if you have 20 cores, you will use 20 cores. So it's a lot faster, more efficient, and more accurate. And there's an all new system which is a little bit like a CFD, which you have already had around the aircraft. But imagine that thing which remains 6 minutes behind every aircraft at a range of which is pretty much the whole world. Which simulates, this is really specialized to get wake turbulence to work behind helicopters, behind aircraft, multiplayer, traffic.
That's going to be fun,
everything.
Flying behind your friends and getting
this, if you do formation flights, but also if you take off behind a big airliner, wait a little bit. So there's a visualization. We're going to properly make that nicer so that you can really see how long you need to wait before it goes away. And so that's a big innovation. It was an extremely hard and complicated thing to implement because it is the same thing than the CFD, but it's thousands of times larger, right? It has to be everywhere. And we improved on the atmospheric simulation also a little bit. So there's really 4 systems, and we keep pushing forward. I think that's the good, good number of layers, because we go from very small element on the aircraft to like whole atmosphere around the airplane. Yeah,
that's awesome. So for the wake turbulence, is that all simulated how it sinks down as well as it goes along, and also does it affect clouds?
So it affects. So it follows the wind. It slightly sinks. It does not collide with the ground. For the simple reason is that it was a little bit expensive to compute.
Gotcha.
So I don't say we'll never add it, but if it's only for the wake turbulence, the user benefit was not that. I mean, it didn't change anything. So what we did is we modeled the trajectory so that it goes tangent to the ground. But if there's a hill, it's not going to go up the hill or whatever. The benefit was not big enough because these things can very quickly get expensive. And it affects, so we are currently implementing the effect of it. So it affects your airplane when you fly, your helicopter. And the helicopter is kind of tricky when you fly and you start going. You get something, right? You're like, oh, that was me. But it also now affects smoke. So it's on the smoke editor, we can turn it on, and it's going to affect smokes, dust, whatever. We do not do clouds yet. It's so the data structure of this is extremely complicated, but we think it could be done. So it's something which is on our list. To one day get that into fog cloud, whatever, anything out there. It's something which we think could be done, but it's something, the technology here is really complicated, so not yet.
All right. A lot of people worry about performance and always. How have you guys balanced bringing all this extra detail like we see in the ground in the Grand Canyon? It's so detailed. How is that balanced coming into the new sim?
So we optimize a lot of things, and we push as much as we can to different CPUs. So many things have moved from the main CPU to the second. So for example, on the aerodynamics, the surfaces is on other cores now. The CFD is on other cores now. The weather on other cores. Like all the interaction, the wake turbulence is on other cores. We try to move to other cores and also optimize because, I mean, we don't want just to fill everything. So, for example, for the terrain generations has been heavily optimized. Some of the stuff that was running in 2020 is still there and had to be optimized just to deal with all the data that we have. And so, heavy work to try to. I mean, our goal is that the performance is even better, right? That's what we want. And so it's our main focus. Performance, memory, stability is always a main focus.
Awesome. And so a lot of people are also asking and curious about, we saw these forest fires, we saw these tornadoes even in the trailers. Are those going to be in, say, real time? Like if there's a tornado in real life, would that show up in free flight? Or if there was a fire, would that show up in your free flight?
So we have in order to get this, we need to have the ability to spawn these or to generate these and the data source. Right now, need to check with Jorg.
Okay.
I don't think we have a reliable data source for tornadoes. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So if we had, we probably could. And I think these ones are mission. So some of the missions have them. I don't know if they're in the weather menu.
Okay. Gotcha.
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't think. But basically the tech is here. It's just a matter of getting the data source and plug it, together.
Yeah, for sure.
So I mean, if it's not there now, it's gonna be at some point.
Yeah.
Right. That's the goal, of course.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of time. Same thing for forests. So I know they are simulated, so like they can propagate. Are they linked to the database of because I know there's one, I think with satellites or so they get where the fires are. Same thing, need to ask Jorg.
Gotcha.
Because he always acquires data.
Okay, he's the one for the data.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So sometimes it's complicated to implement. Sometimes the data is not secured yet.
Gotcha.
But this again is just a matter of time.
I'll see if I can.
Because we have the tech now, so it's just a.
I'll see if I can find them again later.
Yeah.
All right. And another big topic that people want is was talking about weather radars in the third-party add-on. So that kind of goes into another question: is how has the SDK evolved to allow the developers to bring more to the sim? In 2024 we had the SDK in the core
of our process from the beginning, right? In 2020, it was sort of added, and the documentation came a bit late, and some of the tools. Here, from the get-go, we had the team focused on that. So there's a lot of new tools. There's a lot of documentation. I wouldn't say it's perfect, right? Because these things can always evolve. But we really focused on it from the beginning. So it should be a lot more easy, a lot more flexible, and not as, I would say, as much as at the beginning of 2020, where there was a little bit of how do we do this, how we do this. So we try to do our best here, and the team has been working on the SDK from the beginning. There's a lot of new stuff, and we try to document, give samples on all that. Yeah, so it's been a focus.
All right. And then I have the final question that I've been asking everyone is that the Apple event was today. Are you an iPhone or Android user?
I do both.
You do both, okay.
So I've been switching Apple, Android. The only thing that makes me switch is parental control. I want my kids. So I used to have them on Android, then they somehow found a workaround. So I switched to iPhone, and then they found a workaround, and so I upgraded the iPhone. So far, it sort of holds. I don't know why they sometimes still manage to hack it, and I'm kind of fed up because of the issues on. I mean, my middle daughter. You know, I give them like 1 or 2 hours. I don't want them to be burned by social media. And every now and then she somehow cracks it and can do 8 hours, 10 hours, and I have to go in again. And so I'm currently right now, if they don't make that better on Apple, I'm gonna go back to Android because that's my main. I mean, I don't know, email is gonna work, calendar is gonna work, but I want to make sure the kids don't get burned by. I mean,
that's important today.
A little bit is okay, right? You learn computer, you learn technology, but don't do 8 hours of watching mini videos or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not productive.
People get sucked into technology nowadays.
Exactly. I mean, they should also read a book or whatever. I mean, so that's the only reason. So right now I have a iPhone.
Okay.
But I've gone.
Yep. All right.
My own priorities. I don't care actually, so it's whatever works.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking.